You're looking at a cucumber vine that is nearly 6 feet tall and completely loaded with heavy, crisp vegetables. And the craziest part about it? Just a few days ago, this exact same plant was yellow, stunted, and looked like it was giving up. I poured exactly 1 cup of a homemade solution at the base of this vine, watered it once, and the growth exploded. Literally immediately. I did not use a single drop of store-bought chemical fertilizer to make this happen. Not 1 drop. I'm holding a mason jar of the exact solution right now. It is golden, slightly foamy on top, like a cold root beer, and it costs pennies to make from a simple baking ingredient you already have, sitting in your kitchen pantry right now. My name is John. A few years back, I was just another office worker stuck in the concrete sprawl of a major city, staring at screens all day, breathing exhaust, feeling completely disconnected from the earth. I needed a change, so I traded all that city noise for the quiet, rolling acres of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. These days, I'm living, working, and learning alongside Elias Yoder and his family. Elias is a traditional Amish farmer. He grows food the way folks used to grow it in this country back before everything got corporatized, working with the soil, not fighting it. But I remember the frustration of city gardening all too well. I really do. Back then, I tried so hard to grow my own food on a tiny apartment balcony and later in a cramped, shaded backyard. I wanted a garden like the ones from my childhood, the kind of backyard patch that fed the whole neighborhood during the summer. I wanted a tomato that actually tasted like a tomato, but it was a constant, exhausting battle. Total failure. Every spring, I would drive out to the massive big box hardware stores on the edge of town. I would load down the trunk of my car with heavy plastic bags of what they called premium potting soil, but it was just dead, sterile dirt. I bought the bright blue crystal fertilizers, the synthetic nitrogen sprays. Total failure. Every spring, I would drive out to the massive big box hardware stores on the edge of town. I would load down the trunk of my car with heavy plastic bags of what they called premium potting soil, but it was just dead, sterile dirt. I bought the bright blue crystal fertilizers, the synthetic nitrogen sprays, the expensive chemical root boosters that promised a lush garden in days. I spent hundreds of dollars, and the result? Heartbreak, every single summer. The late July heat waves would roll in, 100 degrees Fahrenheit radiating off the asphalt and the brick walls. The heat would just bake the life right out of my expensive containers. My cucumber leaves would turn pale yellow, crisp up around the edges and drop off. Mildew and disease would spread like a slow fire across the vines. The bugs came. They ate everything. And those few sad tomatoes I actually managed to get to the kitchen counter, they tasted like watery cardboard. It was incredibly discouraging. I was following every rule on the back of every plastic bottle. I was watering on a strict schedule, but the garden just felt weak. I was essentially keeping my plants on life support, pumping them full of artificial nutrients just to keep them breathing. It felt entirely dependent on me buying the next chemical fix. I was pouring hard-earned money into the dirt and getting absolutely nothing back. I was watering on a strict schedule, but the garden just felt weak. I was essentially keeping my plants on life support, pumping them full of artificial nutrients just to keep them breathing. It felt entirely dependent on me buying the next chemical fix. I was pouring hard-earned money into the dirt and getting absolutely nothing back. I was angry. I was ready to throw my shovels in the trash and just give up on growing anything forever, because I was missing the one secret that actually makes a garden thrive. The secret I finally learned out here. Then I drove out to Lancaster County and stood at the edge of Elias Yoder's vegetable garden. Calling it a garden almost feels like a disservice. It was a massive, sprawling plot stretching out behind his white farmhouse, green and vibrant and practically overflowing with life. I was completely speechless. Then I drove out to Lancaster County and stood at the edge of Elias Yoder's vegetable garden. Calling it a garden almost feels like a disservice. It was a massive, sprawling plot stretching out behind his white farmhouse, green and vibrant and practically overflowing with life. I was completely speechless. I walked down rows of tomato plants that stood over 6 feet tall. Their branches were incredibly heavy with deep red fruit, bending straight toward the earth under the sheer weight of it all. But here is what really struck me. I looked around for the trick. I did not see a single piece of black plastic weed barrier, no expensive automated drip irrigation systems clicking on and off on a digital timer, and definitely no synthetic blue spray bottles or shiny chemical bags tossed in the corner of a shed. Nothing artificial. Zero chemicals. Elias was out there in a worn straw hat and heavy work pants, just quietly checking the undersides of some squash leaves. I walked up and asked him what kind of expensive booster he was buying to get his cucumbers climbing that high in the middle of a hot summer. He just laughed. A deep, quiet laugh. He told me his family does not buy seeds every spring, and they sure do not buy fertilizers. They build the soil and they save their seeds. The cucumber and tomato vines I was looking at right then, they were grown from seeds his father saved from a harvest over 50 years ago. Think about that. 50 years. back when folks still bought their rakes and twine from local mom and pop hardware stores right on Main Street, back before giant corporations took over every single acre of American farmland. These plants were not fragile, weak little hybrids sitting on a metal shelf at a megamart. They were survivors, back before giant corporations took over every single acre of American farmland. These plants were not fragile, weak little hybrids sitting on a metal shelf at a megamart. They were survivors. They had 50 years of Pennsylvania sun, rain, and soil built deep into their roots, 50 years of pure resilience. His soil was incredibly rich, dark and crumbly. It smelled sweet, like the deep woods after a heavy spring rain. Elias told me the secret to a garden that actually takes care of itself is not what you spray on the leaves. It is how you treat the ground beneath your feet. That changed everything for me. Here is the truth. The massive agricultural corporations do not want you to know how Elias grows his food. They really do not. Elias told me the secret to a garden that actually takes care of itself is not what you spray on the leaves. It is how you treat the ground beneath your feet. That changed everything for me. Here's the truth. The massive agricultural corporations do not want you to know how Elias grows his food. They really do not. If you can grow your own heavy, disease-resistant tomatoes from seeds you saved yourself, you are not buying their products. You are not a reliable consumer. So over the last few decades, the industry fundamentally changed the rules of the game. They turned everyday American gardeners into dependent customers. Back during the Great Depression, folks survived because they knew how to keep a backyard patch of dirt alive. They saved everything. Seed saving was just a normal part of life. But today, the companies dominating the garden centers push hybrid seeds. Now, hybrids might look pretty on the front of a glossy catalog, but they have a built-in flaw. If you save the seed from a store-bought hybrid vegetable and plant it the next spring, it will not grow true to the parent plant. Sometimes, it will not produce fruit at all. You are forced to go back to the big box store year after year, pulling out your wallet to buy more seeds. You are no longer an independent gardener. You are a subscriber, paying a yearly tax just to grow your own dinner. It is a trap, and the reality gets much worse when you look at what they are selling you for the dirt itself. All those brightly colored jugs of chemical fertilizers, the shiny bags of root boosters with massive marketing budgets behind them, they are essentially just synthetic salts. Sure, if you pour them on a struggling cucumber plant, you might see a quick, unnatural burst of green leaves. But underneath the surface, where it actually matters, those chemicals are doing terrible damage. Those heavy synthetic salts scorch the earth. They completely wipe out the natural living microbiome in the soil. They kill the beneficial bacteria. They destroy the microscopic fungi. It becomes dead dirt, all dead. Once the soil biology is wiped out, your plants cannot feed themselves naturally anymore. They completely lose their natural immune systems. Because the soil is dead, the plants get weak. When they get weak, the pests and the diseases sweep right in. And guess who is right there waiting on the store shelf? They destroy the microscopic fungi. It becomes dead dirt. All dead. Once the soil biology is wiped out, your plants cannot feed themselves naturally anymore. They completely lose their natural immune systems. Because the soil is dead, the plants get weak. When they get weak, the pests and the diseases sweep right in. And guess who is right there waiting on the store shelf? The exact same massive corporations, ready to sell you an expensive plastic bottle of synthetic pesticide to temporarily fix the exact problem they created in the first place. The folks over at the USDA might regulate the warning labels on those bottles, but they cannot regulate common sense. It is a brilliantly profitable cycle for the corporate boardrooms, a complete disaster for our backyards. We gave up the quiet wisdom of our grandparents for the convenience of a chemical spray bottle. We traded away our independence for an illusion. Elias understands this deep in his bones. He knows that true freedom starts in the dirt. If you control your soil, you control your food. And you do not need a multinational corporation telling you how to do it. Elias and his family do these things out of pure, generations-old habit. They just know what works. They do not sit around the porch talking about soil microbiology or laboratory test results. But my mind is wired a little differently. I wanted to understand exactly why Elias's garden was thriving while my city pots had withered and died. I dug into the agricultural science, and the biology behind his old farm trick is absolutely fascinating. The secret is just Baker's active dry yeast. Yes, plain baking yeast. The exact same stuff your grandmother used to make her homemade bread rise on a Sunday afternoon. We look at it as a simple baking ingredient, but out in the garden it becomes a microscopic workforce. Because yeast is not just a powder. It is a living fungus. It is alive. When you activate yeast in water and pour it into your garden, it goes straight to work in the dirt. You see, a lot of the time, our soil actually has plenty of nutrients hiding in it. Essential things like ammonia, phosphorus, and potassium. But those minerals are locked up tightly, fixed in the soil. Your tomato and cucumber roots simply cannot absorb them. They are starving while sitting right at the dinner table. The yeast steps in and breaks those heavy minerals down. It digests the organic matter and converts those locked up nutrients into an easily available form. It essentially spoon feeds the plant roots. And it does so much more than just provide a meal. When you introduce this fungus to the soil, it acts as a shield against pathogenic bacteria. It outcompetes the bad bacteria that cause blights and wilts, protecting your crops before an infection even has a chance to take hold. It also builds incredible cellular resilience. When that brutal 100-degree Fahrenheit summer heat wave rolls in, a yeast-treated plant knows how to handle the stress. It helps the plant survive severe droughts. The roots hold onto moisture better. The leaves do not just give up and drop off. It even changes the vegetables themselves. Tomatoes and cucumbers grown with this healthy fungal network actually last much longer sitting on your kitchen counter after you pick them. They stay firm. They do not rot nearly as fast. Now, let me be completely straight with you. It takes time. This is not some overnight chemical trick. It is not a toxic pesticide. If you're looking for an artificial spray that will instantly wipe out every single squash bug in your garden overnight, this is not it. It will not do that. But if you want to build a deep, lasting plant immune system that naturally fights off diseases over the entire summer, this is exactly the path you take. You are building health from the ground up. You do not need a massive farm in Pennsylvania to make this work. You just need a kitchen pantry and a few minutes of your time. This method translates perfectly for folks growing a couple of tomato plants on a concrete apartment balcony or tending to a small raised bed out in the suburbs. Start with exactly 1 quart of warm water. Make sure it is room temperature, not freezing cold tap water straight out of the pipes. The yeast needs gentle warmth to wake up from its dormant state. Stir in 1 tablespoon of active dry yeast and 2 tablespoons of plain granulated sugar. The sugar gives the fungi the initial energy it needs to start multiplying. Do not seal the jar. If you put a tight lid on it, the pressure will build up as it ferments. Just set the lid loosely on top. Let it sit on your counter for at least 2 hours. Leaving it overnight is even better. By the next morning, it will bubble and foam up heavily, looking a whole lot like a cold root beer on a hot afternoon. And then, you simply pour that quart mixture into a 5-gallon bucket filled with sun-warmed water. Give it a good stir. Take a simple kitchen measuring cup. Pour exactly 1 cup of this diluted solution directly at the base of each struggling plant. You can use it on your cucumbers, your squash, or your patio peppers. You can even put some in a spray bottle and mist the leaves directly for a quick foliar feed. It is that simple. But if you really want to boost this mixture, you can take a page straight out of a Great Depression survival garden. Back then, folks did not throw anything away. They used household waste to build their soil. So, to make this feed even more powerful, look around your home. You can add 1 tablespoon of wood ash straight from your backyard fire pit. Just make sure you collect the ash before it rains, or the water will wash all those valuable minerals right back into the ground. Next, add 1 tablespoon of dry, crushed eggshell powder from your kitchen scraps. And finally, stir in 1/2 teaspoon of plain Epsom salt, which is just magnesium sulfate. Mix those 3 things into your yeast bucket, pure garden gold. You're feeding the soil exactly what it is begging for, using things you were probably just going to throw in the trash anyway. So this weekend, I want to give you a small challenge before you grab your car keys. Before you drive down to the hardware store to buy another heavy plastic jug of chemical fertilizer, just look inside your kitchen pantry. Try this instead. Mix up a batch of this yeast water. Pour it over those struggling patio peppers or that wilting tomato vine on your back porch. Watch what happens. It works. It really does. Because keeping these old traditions alive is exactly how we reclaim a little bit of our independence. We do not need a giant corporation to tell us how to grow our own food. We just need to remember what our grandparents already knew. And I would really love to hear from you down in the comments. What was the one plant or vegetable that your grandparents were the absolute most proud of in their backyard garden? Was it a massive beefsteak tomato? A long row of sweet green beans? Let me know. Share those memories down below. Because that is the exact kind of American heritage we really need to hold on to right now. We cannot let that wisdom just fade away. Thanks for sitting on the porch with me today. Take care of your soil and it will take care of you.